Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to dye a really long I-cord to create some self-striping yarn. I used the following embellish knit kit to create a I-cord out of 462 yards of stroll fingering weight yarn. This is held one strand, and to be honest, it took forever. I would have loved to have tried this on, say, worsted weight, but this particular crank I-cord maker only really works on fingering weight yarn or lighter. The amount of prep work was really long, so therefore, going in, I don't know if I'm going to recommend this. However, if you do need, a reasonable amount of fingering weight I-cord, this device is great. It's certainly faster than knitting I-cord by hand. It just still took a long time. I made the largest skein possible of the I-cord on my skein winder. And once I take it off, I will measure it to see how large it is once, there's not the tension from being on here anymore. But we did get 17 wraps. We got almost a 2-yard skein. And we have, I would say, maybe a total of 68 or 70 inches around. Technically, it was about 17¼ full wraps, but let's go ahead and pretend this is a 2-yard skein with 17 wraps, which would be 34 yards of I-cord. That is a lot. We shrunk the length of our yarn from 462 yards to, what did I say, about 34 yards? That's about, over 13x shrinking. And so, it's just sort of nice to know that when I hand paint a certain length of I-cord, once it is unwound, it'll be about more than 10 times that length. One positive reason for the shrinking is that I can fit this almost 2-yard skein on my yarn swift. So I would be able to unravel this in the end with ease. And the unraveling and reskeining can be one of the hardest parts on if you create, say, like a 10-yard skein or something really big. I think that the total amount of time to wind say a 10-yard skein, dye it, and then wind it back into something that's more reasonably sized, that amount of labor is still probably less than winding all of this I-cord. But I think that this is still a really fun experiment to try, and I cannot wait to start dyeing this. I am going to pre-soak my I-cord in some tap water with 3 tablespoons of white vinegar for a minimum of 30 minutes. You can see it, whoa. You can see as I'm squeezing it that there is a fair amount of air in here. And we just want to make sure that the fibers are nice and saturated so that way we can hand paint the colors that we want. For the dye today, we are going to use the Wilton Color-Right Performance Color System. And I'm going to use their color recommendations as a guide. But I know a little bit from experience of using this to dye yarn that, for example, if I like this blue over here, where it recommends 26 drops of blue, 8 drops of red, 4 drops of pink, that's enough dye for the entire skein. So on some of these recommendations, I'm going to bring the colors back, cut them back, so that way I can get something that will be slightly more manageable. There is 1/3 cup of water in each of these cups. Now let's mix this first color, which is sort of like an indigo-ish shade. I am going to do 7 drops of blue, 3, 4, 6, 7 drops of blue, 1 drop of the base pink, and then 1 drop of the base red, which is going to be super viscous. Yeah, you can see how that drops sort of just falls down. It's a lot of, ooh, that's a pretty color. I want a teal. I am going to go with 6 drops of blue. Oh good, I'm filming. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 1 drop of yellow. Let's see. Oh, that's a nice, nice teal. Very Rebecca-y colors. So I want sort of a gray. Gray is kind of hard to achieve, so I have a feeling this will end up feeling a little more lavender, and especially because we accidentally got a tiny bit of blue in this cup. But I am going to add 2 drops of black. Maybe I'm going to regret the fact that it was 2 drops instead of just 1. Yeah, so it's not going to really read as gray, I don't think, on the yarn. It'll break, it'll be a little mottled, but it's kind of the kind of gray that you can get with food coloring. Let's try 4 drops of blue. Here is our blue. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to look at these on the yarn and see how they start looking once I add them on, and how I'm gonna want to play with these together. But right now in the cups, they just look super, super dark. I have added the dye into some needle nose squeeze bottles just to aid with the application today. But now that I'm presented with the blank canvas, I'm having a little indecision about how I want to go about this. I could do 4 even sections to get some pretty thick stripes. Well, maybe not that thick, because I guess things will repeat 17 times. I could do some thinner sections and thicker sections, sort of like varying the size of each of the colors. There's just many, many different ways that we could go about this. But I think I'm just gonna go for it and start applying a color to see sort of how it goes. So this is that black. And you can see that it's breaking. Well, maybe you're a little zoomed out, but I can see that as this goes onto the yarn, and actually, as I'm doing each of these stripes, I can like spread this out pretty nicely. That's cool. Just from this first look, you know, this is looking like I see the breaking going on in there. Oh dear, I forgot that these things leak. So if you squeeze too hard. So I'm curious what the color penetration is going to be like on the wrong side, but it does not seem like it is moving very much. So that is good to know, but it is going through to the other side reasonably. But you can see that this is definitely not a gray. I think that if I wanted the colors to be smoother, I should have had less, I should have started with less acid. Oh no, I'm leaking over there. And the other thing I could have done is started with more water in here. If I had more water in here to begin with, the colors could be a little bit paler, and I would maybe be able to smush things through a little bit more. But one of the cool features of this is that, you know, this is going to be pretty random and have some really cool variegated quality within this stripe. But if I wanted, I keep dripping. If I wanted the colors to be a little more even, you can see I'm squeezing and like those reds have all struck and it's just this tealish color behind. If I wanted the colors to be more even, I could keep applying the dye on top of this. I'm going to start doing, I think, another color next to it, and then I'll decide how much I might want to extend that. I think that this is maybe, I don't know if this is 6 inches on me, but maybe this is 5 or 6 inches right here, which from my previous calculations would be a couple feet. So yeah, I don't know. All right, let's go for this deeper blurple color. And I'm gonna do a line right here. Ooh, that's pretty. And again, we are seeing breaking here. We're seeing like the purples surrounded by blue as like these colors sort of spread out. And if I smush it, that makes it even more apparent because those blues are really spreading and those pinks and reds are just striking so fast. This is why I didn't think I could do like a pink because the odds of getting it to strike well were very, very slim. Because those red number 3s are just hitting and going for it. But this is why also, sometimes when I'm dyeing yarn or fiber or anything really, I will start going and then I'll look at the effect that I'm getting and let that determine how I'm applying it and how I continue. So those first looks are really important as I continue to create the colorway as a whole. And the nice thing is that these needle nose applicators is that, you know, I can really go in and apply the dye like really closely in some sections. So this is going to be a very unique, very one-of-a-kind type of yarn that we're getting here. Not just because of the hand painted. A lot of hand painted stuff can be one of a kind, but because yeah, I mean, it would be hard to duplicate this exact colorway on another yarn. All right, so I applied some color here. I want to give a close-up of when I like smush it. There, you see how like those blues spread out, but those reds are just stuck. And the nice thing about filming is that I always know how much of the colors that I used were. And I think if I were to go and like, rather than like apply on the top, if I was to insert the bottle and squeeze, that also changes the way that the colors sort of go in and play together. But I will say I am really enjoying applying color to like these Icords. I think that it's really easy to manage and pretty easy to see where I might have missed color or not. So I really do sort of enjoy where this is taking us. I am going to extend both of these colors, I think, a few more inches. Next, I am going to go in with the teal, and I think I want to go to about here. Now, teals can definitely break. They absolutely can break, and I expect that we will see some, if not breaking, we'll see some of that patchy, variegated, semi-solid feel to this section, but it does not break anywhere near as extreme as, say, like the violets or the black. Yeah, but you can see we've got like a teal and then this blue is sort of behind everything today. Yeah, I think this is going to be really fun. Yeah, if you wanted more even colors, then start with less acid, or maybe even no acid and spray on acid after. But with food coloring, some reds will start striking right away, no matter how you have things set up. I just undid the ties that I'd had around this skein, which means that I am risking ending up with a tangled mess. But I sort of wanted to keep, say, these colors in certain sections. And I'm now going to go ahead and apply the color to the rest of the yarn as we have at the beginning. When I started applying these bright blues that I had mixed, I realized that even they are striking quickly, which is not something we are used to with this blue number 1. We're used to being able to spread it, and the reason why it's striking so fast is that I had so much vinegar in the pre-soak. I didn't measure the volume of water, but there were definitely, maybe 8 to 10 cups with 3 tablespoons of vinegar, which is around the amount that I might add on a non-superwash yarn to get the final colors to bind completely. So yeah, I think it's really interesting that we are getting something that is so mottled, even with me sort of like squeezing and massaging the colors through. And so this really is going to be a very unique artisanal self-striping type yarn. Here is our hand-painted Icord. I would say that our stripes range between 6 and this one's over a foot, 6+ inches. We've got stripes that will be of different sizes, and I think that this is something that is going to look really cool. There's going to be an element of uniqueness within each of these stripes, and I think the effect is going to be, it's going to look like that you were swapping between different tonal yarns, but you're not, because it's there. And if this looks so cool right now as just these Icords, I just cannot wait to see what it's going to look like when we unravel it. I had protected my work surface with plastic wrap. I like to do this when I'm hand painting because not only does it protect my counters, but I can now use it to wrap up the yarn so we can steam it. So I'm just folding up this plastic wrap to create this little jelly roll, as I like to call it. I've added the yarn to a microwave safe bowl, and I'm going to microwave this on high for a total of 6 minutes in 2-minute increments. I like to microwave in increments so I can check the heat. I want this to be hot to touch, but I don't want things to dry out too much. So that's why I always check after every 2 minutes. Whew, we are piping hot. And there's a tiny bit of blue runoff here. But given all the colors that we used, if some dye goes between and it's the blues, that's totally okay. And not a problem. But you know, we see like our nice bright and saturated colors here. But I do want to let this cool completely before we wash our hand-dyed, hand-painted Icord. Here is our Icord. Since I don't have any ties on it right now, I'm going to try to keep a really good handle on it. But I do want to rinse it because I'm going to let it dry as the Icord, unravel it onto my skein winder, and then I guess wet it again to help the crimp from the Icord relax. But this is beautiful. It is going to create these variegated stripes, and honestly, I don't know if I've really seen a yarn like that in that kind of way. I'm sure there's something similar out there, but I am really excited Now, I know I said already that I might not do this again. It was kind of a pain to make this I-cord, but sort of already want to do this with some more like semi-solid, I just used the clear dish soap. So I want to do this to create more of a semi-solid, or actually more solid, less variegated striping. But let me know what you think, and maybe sometime I'll do a live stream, do a couple yards of the I-cord, and yeah, you'll let me know what you think. But oh yeah, the I-cord also gets twisted. There were a lot of things with making this much that was a bit of a pain. Certainly I wouldn't do it by hand, but anyway, all of our color is in the yarn, which isn't a huge surprise, but we did use a lot of color. I'm now going to finish rinsing the soap out. Oh no, we're good. I'm going to finish rinsing the soap out, and then I'm going to hang this up to dry. I was doing so well, and then I had to go make a complete mess of my I-cord skein. Thankfully, compared to a lot of yarn barf type situations, I think I should be able to get this in some kind of order really fast. I'm not going to exactly bother to rewind the whole thing, especially since I'm about to go unravel it right now. I may as well just start unraveling this, but I think that this is really, really cool. I am extremely curious to see if these striped sections will be as long as I think that they might be. We might end up with something that's a little more like micro stripes. I'm not sure. Either way, I think this is going to be such a fun yarn. So now let's go unravel it. I just started unraveling this, and each color section definitely has multiple wraps. And if each wrap is over a yard, I mean, that's pretty good. Maybe I should have hand wound this one instead of using the skein winder, since it's a little hard to tell that it's self-striping once it has been reskeined. You can tell that these are long color repeats because you don't see them shifting quickly, and they are variegated, which maybe the variegated, like kettly looking-ish parts, speckles, makes it a little harder to tell. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. I think that I am going to make a swatch out of this yarn. Yep, that's right. ChemKnits is going to swatch something. As I started to take it off the nitty knotty, suddenly we're looking a bit more stripy. I'm afraid to go downstairs to where I film because we are looking nice and stripy right here, fresh off of the skein winder. Alright, this looks like stripes to me. I see striping here. Yeah, you can tell that there is something going on here. I'm going to go ahead and knit a swatch of this tonight while I'm watching some movies, just so that way we can see a little bit what the striping pattern looks like. Normally, I don't include swatches in my video, and I don't do this for a few reasons. One, it takes a long time to make a swatch, and I dye so many skeins of yarn, I just don't have that additional time to put into each video. Two, it means I'd have to open up the skein, rewind the skein a bit, and that also takes time, but you know, it sort of affects the integrity of a skein that's ready to put in my shop. Today, I am dying to see what the striping pattern looks like. Even if my swatch won't translate exactly to, say, a pair of socks, it will give us a little more information about this yarn. And it's already crimped from having been knit, so I'm going to go and have to relax this anyway by wetting it. So let's go see what this looks like knit up. You guys, ChemKnits knit a swatch. ChemKnits knit a swatch. In this case, with self-striping yarn, I really did need a swatch to show what this yarn would look like. And this is really, really cool. It looks almost like I took a bunch of kettle-dyed mini skeins and combine them together. But it's one yarn. We've got the broken black in between each of the brighter colors. A broken purple, a subtly broken turquoise, and just the bright blue. I've talked a few times in this episode about the labor that went into making this Icord. I think the result is absolutely spectacular. You could probably create this kind of effect with a few other conditions, making a really long skein and then dipping it to sort of kettle dye different regions to get stripes could result in something similar but not necessarily identical. However, with any kind of handmade craft, it all boils down to, do you enjoy it? Will you enjoy the process? And will you enjoy the final product? Only you can decide if this is worth the effort for you to attempt it yourself. Now, if it were possible for me to find a quote Icord blank that I could then go and dye and then go and unravel, then I might be a little more interested in exploring this again. But I think that I'm going to want to explore some other techniques to create self-striping yarn, because the labor for the first step was too much for me personally. What's the next step in this project? Well, I'm now going to go unravel this swatch, reskein the yarn, not the entire skein, but reskein, the swatch into the yarn, and then I'm going to go wet it to help relax this crimp that we got from unraveling our Icord. Let me know what you think of this technique and yarn in the comments. I really look forward to hearing what you thought about this project. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and if you want to get some really cool sneak peeks and behind the scenes views as I'm filming new episodes of Dyepot Weekly, check out the ChemKnits Patreon. In addition to these behind the scenes and early access to content, you can also get some other really cool perks by becoming a patron. You can find a link both in the video description and the iCard. Don't forget to subscribe to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel and click that bell icon to turn on notifications for when I start a new live stream and release a new video, etc. Thank you so much for watching.